Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Am Side podcast, the show that talks about all things disc golf. From weekend rounds with your mates to the Pro Tour over in the States, we've got you covered all from an amateur perspective. Let me introduce myself. I'm Rob and I'm here with my co-host Dale.
Hello.
So Dale, before we jump into anything, I just want to say this is the first episode and I personally am massively excited. I don't know about you.
Oh, mate, I've been so excited all day to record this. You know, it started off as a WhatsApp message. Do you fancy starting a podcast? And we've got here. It is absolutely mental. The support we've had is a joke as well.
Oh, it's amazing. I think, I mean, like you said, you messaged me saying, "Hey, we've got nothing to do. We can't play disc golf because of the pandemic. Do you want to do a podcast so we can just talk about all things disc golf related and talk about the sport? Should I do an Instagram post?" I said yes, and things really sort of blew up from there. So I think, the journey already is something really exciting.
Yeah, it is mental. And talking about the journey, big shout out to Disc Hub, who has sponsored the podcast. It's mental. We're even talking about episode 1. We've got a sponsor for the podcast.
Oh, again, yeah, massive. So this is probably a great time to shout out dischub.co.uk. So Dischub came to us fairly soon after we created the Instagram page and said they would like to support us. And if you haven't checked out Dischub, make sure you do it as soon as you can. They've got fantastic pricing. They've got unbeatable customer service. If you message them on social media, they'll get back to you really quickly with disc suggestions and anything else you need to know. Free shipping over £30, which is a massive bonus. I don't know many others in the UK that are offering sort of free shipping options, but they also have options for Hermes if you want next day and a lot of variation. And my favorite thing about Disc Hub is they have a huge variety of brands, probably one of the largest variety of brands from a UK seller. So they have your favorites like Innova, Discraft, Trilogy, but they also have a few you might not yet be a fan of or have heard of, like RPM, Infinite, and my personal favorite, which I've been throwing this week for the first time, is Yeekon. So if you haven't heard of Yeekon, you might still know them because they're actually the manufacturer of Discmania's disc premium and active premium line discs. So if you throw a sensei like I do, a mentor, a magician, you may already be a fan. So I definitely recommend checking them out.
Yeah, nice. And one thing to remember, Rob, don't forget, if the listeners fancy a bit of a discount, use AMSide5 with the link in our description of our Instagram, and they can get 5% off their next order.
Absolutely. So, Dale, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the premise of the podcast, what they can expect week on week, and how the first couple of episodes might be slightly different, but hopefully something they'll still enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different to our usual episode structure. So today's going to be about getting to know us. We've been very heavy on social media over the last couple of weeks, and it's only right that people start to get to know us, get to know our habits, what our likes and dislikes are in disc golf. Our usual sort of episodes is going to be Pro Tour, but that doesn't start until the 25th of this month with the Las Vegas Challenge, which I cannot wait for. I'm so looking forward to live disc golf again. But also, we've got a new topic every week regarding amateur perspective in disc golf, whether that be favourite players or scales on used disc golf sites or anything that's from an amateur perspective. And if you've got your own topic you'd like to submit to the show, then give us an email on amsidepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear them.
Absolutely, and I cannot wait to jump into that. So, Dale, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you first heard about disc golf and how you initially got involved with the sport?
Yeah, definitely. So I've watched disc golf on YouTube for a couple of years, and I've always thought that's pretty cool. Obviously, Brodie Smith for me is a massive inspiration. I've watched him when he was playing ball golf. I watched him when he played Ultimate. And now, obviously, into disc golf. Not everyone's a massive fan, but I can say that I absolutely love it. So lockdown last year, first lockdown, started on the 23rd of March, day after my birthday. When that finished, some of my mates were like, "Look, we haven't seen each other for ages. Let's go and meet up in a local park." So I was like, "Yeah, fair enough." One of them brought an Ultra Star. I was like, "Oh, takes it back to Ultimate roots. Love it." And then I was like, "Oh, take this a bit further." And then I just got hooked, and I just couldn't stop. That was nearly a year ago now, and I can't get over how much I love disc golf. But I've also met good mates. I met you playing disc golf.
Yep.
I was checking the other day, weren't we? And I think it was September, and we had a text. Oh, do you want to meet over the course? I was like, oh yeah, fair enough. And that's where our relationship, our good friendship started from there. But I've been playing a little bit longer than you. But how did you get started?
So slightly different. I mean, I absolutely agree that Brodie Smith's huge for the sport and has probably got a lot of people into it, but he wasn't necessarily my way in, although I love his content and probably would have got into the sport through him eventually. Me personally, it's quite sort of a simple story, which is I live next door to a course. I walk through the same park every week, especially in lockdown, where all we can do is go for walks. And I started seeing the baskets, and actually it is something I've come across in the past playing sports, seeing baskets, asking what they were. So it was something I was aware of, but it just so happened that a course got put in 4 minutes from my front door over lockdown, and kind of started from there. I had a friend come down for the weekend. I sort of said to him, "Hey, I've never played. You've never played. Do you fancy giving it a go?" Went over, had 2 beaten in Duchesses, which we borrowed from the course, and we just played for a couple of hours and honestly had just an amazing time. I was really hooked from, I guess, the first time you sink a impressive putt, not necessarily the first putt, but the first time you sink a putt that maybe took a little bit of skill, you really get hooked and gripped, and yeah, it's definitely an addiction from that point.
Don't talk about putting.
I mean, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I think so with that, I think what a really interesting thing is, like I say, I started using some beat up Duchesses, but I definitely have a lot more discs now. So obviously you said you were you've let us know the route that you sort of understood and got to know the sport and got into the sport, but obviously discs and plastic is a huge thing. So why don't you tell people a little bit about what the first plastic was that you had, where did you get it from, if you still have any of it, and if you're still throwing any of it?
No, definitely. So moving on from the park where I've thrown the Ultrastar, 3 hours later, I join the disc golf buy and sell page on Facebook, and I put a post up there saying, "Look, I'm brand new to disc golf. Would love to sort of get into it. Has anyone got any recommendations of what disc to get?" Obviously, everyone then started posting, and I got a lot of recommendations, which was awesome. But I got an inbox from Chris O'Brien, who runs Catch the Spirit. He said, "I can sort you out a little starter set." I was like, "Oh, perfect." I mean, when he said starter set, we're talking 10 discs, a bag, and a mini. I was like, "Well, I'm set." And what was in that starter set? Right, that was it. So it had a buzz, which I still bag now. You've seen it in my bag. Actually, you threw it in Rip Revenge the other day, didn't you?
I did throw it, and it's interesting for a buzz, but definitely a disc which I enjoyed throwing for a couple of holes.
Yeah, it's very beat in now. I put a photo on it on the UK disc golf fan page the other day. It's very beat in, but it will never leave. So I had a buzz, had a surge. I think the funniest thing that was in it was a nuke. A 13-speed driver for a brand new player is something I would not recommend. But it got me there. It was my first 10 discs, and literally, I think 3 or 4 days later, I messaged my mates and I said, "Right, I've got myself a starter set." And they're like, "Brilliant." Dale's jumped on another bandwagon, and they were like, "Right, well, what do you want to do?" I was like, "Well, I found this disc golf course in Creeksea, which is Burnham on Crouch." I said, "Let's go down." So we did. I shot 29 over. I didn't lose a disc though. I was very, very careful and did not lose a disc. Also missed out 4 holes because I had water on, and I was like, "Well, I can't fire over 40 meters, so it's pointless." So that was my first ever disc bag, 10 discs in a bag, and now I have a backpack with nearly 30 in. So you said you had those beat-in sort of discs.
Yeah.
Now, what about sort of after that? What did you do from there?
Yeah, so we, like I said, we borrowed a couple of Duchesses, which that was just part of the round, and we gave them back. But after that, actually, baptism by fire, which I think you can only describe Creeksy as a new player. We decided that we loved the course in Chelmsford. Let's see if we can go somewhere else. So we that afternoon even we drove over to Burnham to play that course. Now, because of COVID, they weren't able to rent discs, or they weren't happy to rent discs. But they told us that for a fixed price, we could play around, and that would include a disc. Um, Talk about strange disc choices for beginners, because I was given a DJI Quake, which is an absolute utility mid range. It's the most stable thing you can ever throw. So I definitely thought that I got worse over that day, because with the Duchesses I was getting okay distance on. This Quake I could barely make go 10 meters. So but that was
I think Simon Lazotte will have something to say about that.
well I think the tilt hype has been sort of well advertised, so maybe we won't talk about the tilt quite yet on the show. But yeah, so we played Creeksy. Now this is where things got a little bit interesting. Me and my friend, we both lost our discs within 5 minutes playing in a particularly boggy bit of lake, which I'm sure if you played Creeksy you know. But luck would have it, the friend I was with had an inflatable kayak in the back of his car. So we sort of reasonably nice day. We decided to go get the kayak, stick it in the boggy lake, and just see if there was a chance of getting our discs back. Now, within 2 minutes, we pulled out a disc. Wasn't it either of ours? Pulled out another one. Wasn't one of ours. Pulled out another one. Wasn't one of ours. And I think the end of the sort of the kayak session, we did get both of our discs back, but we also had an extra sort of 6-7 discs that we'd pulled out of this bog.
Nice.
So and then we kind of then we sort of played with them for a little while. Now, you talk about your nuke. I then started driving for the rest of the day with a Westside Queen, which is a 14 speed, I believe, which is absolutely ludicrous to think that anyone could throw that on their first day, let alone 6-7 months in. So yeah, there's a little bit of meat hooking going on. But I'm also happy to say that I've found the majority of the owners of those discs. Those that weren't inked, obviously, had to sort of. I wasn't able to get in touch, but the majority of them we managed to get back to their original owners, which I think is really in the spirit of finding discs. And like you said, I'm the same. It's an addiction. I definitely have a plastic problem, and I now have a backpack full of 20, 30 discs, which is ever growing and ever evolving.
No, definitely. I mean, you talk about that Queen. The first ever brand new disc I ever bought was a Ballista Pro from Lat 64, which is, I think it's 13 or 14 speed. And I was saying to my mates, just like, oh yeah, this one's going to go the furthest. It's the fastest you can get. And I had no idea about disc at this point. And literally, I lost it whilst doing field work. And every time I go back to that field, I try and look for it. And because I'd like to throw it now, I'd like to see the difference. But yeah, it was definitely a butcher's block. It was a meat hook. But that's the joy of it, We live and learn. I wouldn't. How many brand new players out there would not have bought the fastest disc, not knowing what disc golf is?
When I found that Queen, I thought I was sorted. Boom, 14 speed. I'm going to be a pro in no time. But that's the thing. It's a learning curve. Well, the curve of the disc is another type of curve, but it's definitely a learning curve about what your capabilities are when it comes to flight numbers. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the curve for throwing that disc is 90 degrees to the left.
Yeah.
Creech is it was a good place. I mean, I wish it wasn't the first course I ever played, because it's quite hard. If you're a beginner player, I mean, even now, before lockdown, I went and played with my friends. It was windy, and if anyone finds a Tour Series Page Pierce Stalker or an Essence anywhere at Creeksy, then please hit me up. And I don't think they're inked, so it's just a hopeless plea to find it. But I think you're right. Plastic problem is definitely the word. My postman now knows about disc golf. the other day he dropped me off a parcel. He was like, another one? I was like, yeah. He was like, we'll definitely, I definitely want to give this a go. I was like, absolutely, I've got some disc for you. So I'm actually going to play my postman when lockdown's over. I'm going to show him what disc golf is all about.
That'd be brilliant because he'll save so much time in his rounds because when he delivers to your house, he'll just be able to throw them through the letterbox rather than actually walk up the driveway. So there's definitely a skill that a postman could develop.
Definitely. Now, you were talking about, was it Chelmsford?
Yeah.
That you literally live on Chelmsford Park, which is, we won't talk about it because it annoys me every time. But so the first time I met you was at one of the Sunday rounds, wasn't it?
It was. So it was actually a special Sunday round because the day I actually started playing disc golf and I found those discs and all the story that I've just said, it was a Sunday. And I looked online and saw that the Chelmsford Club meet on Sundays. And I was like, well, I've missed that one. But actually, later that evening, me and my friend were still over at the Chelmsford course, still having a play. And one of the founding members actually came up to us and said, hey, because it's a bank holiday tomorrow, we're actually having the round tomorrow morning at 9, which is quite important because they meet at 8 normally, which for a first-time player, there was no way you would have got me to come at 8 o'clock. But 9 was doable. I came over and it was just it was such a great day. I remember it was sunny, there was no wind. It was just a great time to be out on a bank holiday morning. And it was also a special event because it was one of the club handicap rounds as well. So basically, as the club, I'm sure if you're part of the club, you're aware of a similar format. So basically, whoever knocks the most off their handicap wins a prize disc or wins some acclaim. Now, I think it's important to say that we have a cheater in our ranks because a certain Mr. Dale did win that round, I believe. And maybe you want to tell us a little bit about how you managed it.
Right. Before we go through the story, let's just get the word cheater out of it because I don't want our listeners to start thinking that I cheated disc golf because I do not. Yes, you have to check the score and it annoys me, but it's because sometimes we forget. Right, so that was the handicap round. I think my handicap at the time was 24 or 23. I hadn't been playing long. So, it was my first proper competition. And, I turned up to play. I was wearing my outfit that I usually wear, usually full golf attire, because I'm not really quite sure what disc golf attire is. That's a subject for a completely another show. But I shot 13 under and I won a Creeksy Classic Judge.
13 under your disc, 13 under your handicap. I think that's very important to to point out. You didn't throw 13 under the course because that would have been some progression.
That would have been a joke. But yeah, I shot 13 under my handicap, shot 11 over gross, which is my best ever score. I think it was only my third time playing in that course. If I shot 13 over now, I would be disappointed, obviously. But at the time I was buzzing, so I won that. And you must have been thinking, this guy can play.
Well, okay, I admit maybe cheat is a bit harsh. Maybe sandbag is a better word, but you know what? We'll leave that to conversation because I'm sure it's one we'll always be having. But no, like you said, there was this guy in. Actually, you know what? I thought at first disc golfers, because I didn't really get the whole handicap thing. I was like, wow, this guy's had an amazing day, and look, he's wearing full golf gear. This guy must be amazing at disc golf. That was my initial thought. Because you looked the part, you won the disc, you went away with a win. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience. I think I think the Chelmsford courses, the club rounds, I think I'd probably say for both of us is probably the main reason that we got hooked so quickly because of the structure, the bit of that sort of the camaraderie which you have within the club. And a bit of friendly competition, which we always like to bring into our rounds.
Oh, massively! I think if Chelmsford hadn't been open, obviously I live very close to Essex Uni. At the time, that wasn't open at all. I'd been going to Creeksy, so that was a 50-minute drive for me. So I think Chelmsford being open certainly kick-started that addiction, because on a Sunday I could go and play, and I knew when we go and play on a Sunday, let's be honest, Rob, we're not there for one round. We in the summer months we're there till 4 or 5 o'clock.
Absolutely.
And it's good fun. The people there are awesome. We've met some really good mates. We got Michael, George. That's our usual four ball, isn't it? Afterwards, it's me, you,
Yeah.
Michael, which I'm sure in future podcasts we're going to try and get them on. Get their story as well. But that club is grown. I think the first day that I ever went there was 4, 6, 7 people, and now if we get less 12, 13 people at every Sunday, which is awesome. The sport's growing.
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm a new player. I still consider myself a new player. I've been playing for less than a year, but just the rate that the club's growing, the new players that we're getting involved with the club, and because of the sort of the progression, I think disc golf is very accessible, because you can get not necessarily fantastic very quickly, but you can get to a point where you're happy with your play very quickly. I'm already enjoying the benefits of new players coming in and offering some advice that I have from being in their position a couple of months prior. So no, it's if you're not part of a club and there is one in your area, I would recommend it 100%. Now, that's a lot about us. I think this is slightly, as Dale said, it's a slightly different format. We'll be talking about a lot more disc golf related content in terms of the Pro Tour and sort of amateur based topics like new versus used discs, etc. So we'll stop boring you with our life stories. But Dale, I'm really interested about just what your favorite disc is. What are you throwing at the moment that you couldn't live without? Is it a driver? Is it a mid? Is it a putter? What is that go-to disc?
Discraft. Can I not say that?
Discraft what? Because I think that's a brand. So.
Well, my bag, as you know, is predominantly Discraft.
Yeah.
Now, I made a change recently. A lot of discs. A lot of people listening have probably seen all of my in-search of posts and been really annoyed by it, because I'd be really annoyed by it as well. My favourite disc, that is a hard one. Okay. I'm going to go with the disc that I posted on the UK Discraft Collectors group. So it's a Discraft gift. It's the disc that taught me how to play other shots. Because I think when we first started playing, we were playing with George, and he could throw a disc to the right, he could throw a disc to the left. It was quite annoying. And even you played shorter time than me, but you started to be able to shape shots earlier than me. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, I think you. To this day, you have got a better, stronger forehand than I do, which meant that obviously, if you were finishing to the left or to the right, you'd swap between backhand and forehand. I kind of try to get a little bit of sort of Anheuser shaped shots and sort of a couple of flip lines, just because I was quite interested about developing them. So I think I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So I hit up Charlie O'Brien. I said to him, look, what have you got? This is my bag. I sent him a picture of what I had in my bag, and he said, have you thrown a Meteor? And I was like, nope, never heard of one. He's like, throw a Meteor. And as many people know, I don't take a lot of convincing, so I bought a Meteor, and that is the best disc in my bag. I've probably thrown one of my best ever shots with that. That was Essex Uni, hole 1. I was playing with Joe O'Brien, and I was like, I'm just going to throw a little flex line off this. Obviously, he's quite a good player. I'm a much beginner player. But, he got to sound good. So I was like, I'm going to throw a flex line off this. And I did exactly that. And I put it underneath the basket. In fact, for 80% of the way there, I thought it was going in. And, it didn't. I've still not had an ace. But it parked the basket, and he wasn't parked. He took a par. I took a birdie. I'm 1 under. He's even. Who's a better player? Probably still him.
Well, I think that's definitely up for debate. I'm surprised to hear you haven't hit an ace. I think I think they're quite easy to get. I don't know about you, but
you throw me there, because I haven't had an ace. I've wanted an ace. I've been close to aces. I've thrown 30 discs at a hole before to try and get one, but still. No. Let's just get it out there. Have you had an ace?
It's funny you asked that, Dale. Yes, I've had an ace, and you know that I've had an ace because you were there. I mean, but no, in all seriousness, I've only ever thrown one, and it was and that kind of leads on to my favorite disc, I guess. And it isn't the one I got an ace with. So my ace disc was an MD2. The MD line, I think, is one of the greatest mid-range lines. Obviously, you'd disagree, being a Discraft fanboy, but I loved my MD2. But my favorite disc of all time has got to be the MD3. I can like, you talk about shaping shots and how I like to sort of try and shape some interesting shots. And with that MD3, tragically, I lost my go-to one, which was a 170 gram G line, and that thing I could really make do really anything I wanted. But I've still got a couple in my bag, and they're not utility discs because of the numbers, but I would say that it is the most utility thing in my bag because I can get it to go distance. I could do tiny little layup shots just because I know and I trust that disc with a lot. And yeah, I think moving forward we'll be talking about Discmania and how they're sort of handling some of their original lines, and potentially we're going to say goodbye to a few of them, which I hope the MD3 is one that sticks around for a long while.
No, definitely, and I think disc plastic and stuff is definitely going to be a topic because I'm very into talking about. I'd love to know about different discs that you've got in your bag that you've got more than one plastic of, because I know I've got quite a few. But yeah, your MD3. I mean, you did lose that one, but I mean, how did you lose that one? Because it gets me every time.
We were playing a one disc only round, river to the left of the basket, and I was locked off behind a tree on the right, and I decided to do a patent pending backhand, which, if I'd thought about it for a second, I would have known that it would have turned into a roller going straight into the water, but it was one of those ones where I just wasn't thinking. So I'm confident that I might be able to get it back one day, because I know it's sat at the bottom of a river in Essex, but we will see. Strange things have happened.
We have got multiple discs back from that that river. My surge at the moment is sat in someone's bag, and I lost that on the first day I played that course, the day it opened. So I've got hope that you'll get it back. I mean, that was your mystery box one, wasn't it?
It was my mystery box one, and again, mystery box is another topic we'll be talking about on the show. Are they worth it? Are they just the company trying to get rid of discs? That's definitely something we'll be addressing. But talking about hope, I think that's a great segment to sort of finish up today's episode. And a hope that we have is that we hope that you'll join us for the next one. We hope you'll join us on social media, because we've got a lot going on over there. And we look forward to really getting into a lot of the topics which you guys want to talk about.
No, definitely. And I think that's where our podcast, this is what we want our USP to be in it, Rob. We are going to be a short half an hour podcast. Some might be longer, some might be shorter. We just want something you could listen to whilst you're at the course or doing field practice on the way to work. I think that's where we want to be that little bit different.
Absolutely. So until then, we'll see you next time.
See you later, guys. Thanks for listening.